Estou aqui na cidade de Charleston para mostrar a cidade que linda que ela é. Estamos aqui com um guia turístico para ensinar pra gente a história dessa cidade maravilhosa. Por isso aí, deixa aí o seu joinha, deixa aí comentário e se inscreve no canal, gente.
Now, today St. Michael's is part of the most famous intersection in the city. This is meeting in Broad Street. It is better known as the Four Corners of Law. This intersection derived that nickname back in the 1920s after Robert Ripley of Ripley's Believe It or Not. This is the only intersection in America where all four corners represent a different law of our land. Those laws are God's law represented by the church, federal law represented by the federal courthouse and post office, state law represented by the county courthouse, and municipal law represented by City Hall. The locals like to call them hail, mail, jail, and bail.
Olha que cidade maravilhosa, a história dela também muito linda.
George Washington worshipped in St. Michael's when he visited Charleston in 1791. Robert E. Lee worshipped here 1861, and Prince Charles worshipped here as recently as 1990. There are two signers of the United States Constitution buried in the graveyard. Those gentlemen are Charles Coatsworth Pinckney and John Rutledge. Charleston was home to four signers of the United States Constitution and four signers of the Declaration of Independence. Those started to garner national attention. That's when National Geographic magazine came to Charleston to document some of the preservation efforts that were going on here. They did feature a photograph of that collection of buildings in the magazine. Of course, beneath the photograph it was captioned Rainbow Row. We have turned on to Elliott Street. Elliott Street was part of the red light district back in the 1700s. Just a short walk for the sailors who would have disembarked from their ships just opposite Rainbow Row. One of the buildings still standing from the era when this served as the red light district is the old Poinsett Tavern coming up on our right. The Poinsett Tavern has been converted into a private residence today. That's the brick building with the gray stucco featured on the front. This was built in 1732 by Alicia Poinsett. Alicia Poinsett had a descendant named Joel Roberts Poinsett. He was the ambassador to Mexico. While traveling in Mexico, he encountered a plant that he noticed blossomed near Christmas time. He brought it back to the United States and people started referring to it as the poinsettia. The outskirts are Civil War era cannons. I think we have two Revolutionary War era cannons down here as well. And these three at the east end are all Civil War era. They all saw action during the war. And interestingly enough, they're still trained on Fort Sumter. Fort Sumter is the flat island straight out on the horizon. Most Charlestonians believed that the Civil War would be over within approximately 90 days. They thought that they would take Washington, D.C. in about a month's time. Obviously today we know that they were gravely mistaken. The Civil War lasted 4 years and as many as 850,000 casualties occurred. It was easily the bloodiest war in U.S. history. Ironically, the bloodiest war in U.S. history began with a bloodless battle. Nobody died during the 34-hour battle out in the midst of Charleston Harbor. You may have heard this referred to as the old slaves market, but the use of that phrase is similar to a farmer's market. Much like in a farmer's market, you don't buy farmers. They are the ones doing the selling of goods. The same was true during our slaves market. Slaves were selling meat and produce down here. Most of the slaves were sold on the waterfront directly off the ships when they arrived in Port Charleston. And during the international slave trade, Charleston was among the preeminent slave ports in America. Over 360,000 enslaved people entered the United States through the port of Charleston. That number accounts for approximately 40% of all slaves that entered the United States during the international slave trade. As a direct result, today, 1 out of every 3 African Americans can trace their ancestry to Charleston, including our former First Lady, Michelle Obama. Now, the international slave trade was the largest forced migration in world history. Over 12 million enslaved people were taken from Africa and distributed around the world.
Por isso aí, deixa aí o seu joinha, deixa aí comentário, se inscreve no canal, gente, para vocês não perderem nada, tá bom? Espero que vocês tenham gostado. Beijos!